Hi friends, in this session we're going to see the poem Kubla Khan, which was written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Kubla Khan is one of the best poems which is written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It is in fact one of those three poems that have kept Coleridge's name in the forefront of the greatest romantic poets. The other two poems are The Ancient Mariner and Christabel. Coleridge wrote all the three famous poems in 1797 and 1798. His poems deal with supernatural characters wrought with the color and glamour of the Middle Ages. Coleridge's Kubla Khan belongs to the dream territory of art and which is much more colorful and sensuous than real life. The supreme strength of Samuel Taylor Coleridge as a romantic poet lay in his marvelous dream faculty. His famous poem Kubla Khan had its origin in a dream which he had dreamt in a sleep induced by opium. In 1797, while reading a passage related to Kubla Khan and the palace that he commanded to be built in Purchase's pilgrimage, a book of travels, Coleridge fell asleep in his chair. He then dreamt that he was writing a poem about Kubla Khan and his palace. By awakening, he had a distinct recollection of the dream. He hastily took his pen and instantly and eagerly he wrote it down. When he had written only 54 lines of Kubla Khan, he was interrupted by a visitor. As a result, the rest of the poem slipped out of his mind, and the existing one has remained a fragment. The title of the poem at once brings in our mind the picture of a very famous, powerful, and dictatorial Mongol emperor Kubla Khan. Kubla Khan was one of the famous rulers of what is now China. He was the successor of Genghis Khan and completed the conquest of China begun by forefather. After his success, Kubla Khan became the first Yuan ruler of China. The title Kubla Khan no doubt creates interest in the poem, and the reader wants to know about what Coleridge has written about this great man. As the reader reads the poem, he feels how much the poet himself was fond of Kubla Khan's impressive personality and his adventurous and inventive nature. In the poem, Samuel Taylor Coleridge has described the most wonderful creation of the Mongol Emperor Kubla Khan, a highly majestic and magical palace. The poem Kubla Khan is in the form of a dream or vision about a grand palace of a famous ruler of China and its magical surroundings. He has constructed the poem into two parts. The first part describes Kubla Khan's pleasure dome and its beautiful and mesmerizing setting, while the second part describes the creative power of a poet and his poetry. Kubla Khan is one of the greatest Oriental kings, once ordered a magnificent luxury palace to be built for him in Xanadu on the bank of the sacred river Alf. The sacred river flowed through deep and immeasurable caves in the hill and then at last fell into a dark sea. Xanadu was surrounded up to 10 square miles by walls and towers. It had beautiful gardens, winding streams, and trees bearing sweet-smelling flowers. There was also a deep, mysterious chasm that ran down the slope of a green hill across a wood of cedar trees. It was an awe-inspiring place. In fact, it was as holy and bewitched as the one haunted by a woman wailing for her demon lover in the dim light of a waning moon. From this chasm, a mighty fountain gushed forth at short intervals, producing an instant roaring sound. The powerful outburst of water threw up huge fragments of rocks here and there on the earth. They sounded like the hailstones striking the earth or the grains spreading when separated from the chaff by the farmer's flail. The sacred river Alf flowed across a 5 miles long winding course through woods and valleys. Then it entered the immeasurable deep caves and finally sank in the Dead Sea, producing a loud noise. In this tumult of the river, Kubla Khan seemed to hear the voices of his ancestors foretelling him of the impending wars. The palace was built somewhere midway between mighty spring and the caves measureless to men. Its shadow seemed floating in the middle of the river. From the palace could be heard the mixed sounds of the water gushing forth from the spring and the water noisily flowing through the caves. The palace had sunny domes and caves of ice, and its architecture displayed a rare skill or a miracle. In the second part of Kubla Khan, once in a vision, the speaker saw an Abyssinian girl who was playing on a dulcimer and singing a sweet song in praise of Mount Abora. If it were possible for the speaker to revive the sweet melody and music of her song, it would fill him with divine inspiration and he would feel enraptured and poetically inspired. With such divine inspiration, he would write powerful poetry to give a vivid description of Kubla Khan's marvelous palace. The speaker says that his imaginative palace would be so vivid that all the people who would listen to his songs and would see it clearly before their eyes. They would then think of him as a mighty magician and would ask others to be cautious of his flashing eyes and floating hair. They would wave a circle around him 3 times and close their eyes with holy dread. Furthermore, they would say that he had been fed on honeydew and the milk of paradise and warn one another to keep away from him. Kubla Khan is a form of river or vision of the poets about a grand palace of famous ruler of China and its magical surrounding. It is an examination from a dream-soaked imagination and at first sight doesn't seem to possess any rational viewpoint and logical consistency. It looks like a procession of images and images colored in rainbow. However, Kubla Khan is rational as well as logical. Both of its parts are connected to each other in a logical way. The poem is rich in symbolism, imagery, pictorial quality, and romantic elements. In the poem, the river symbolizes life. It runs through nature towards a lifeless sea, that is death, which in some sense corresponds to life. In the background, there is a hill down the slope of which there is a deep romantic chasm. The poet has called this romantic chasm a savage place, as holy and enchanted as the one where a woman cries for her demon lover under a waning moon. Here, the poem evokes supernatural elements. The river in its origin so beautifully blends the sacred, romantic, and demonic suggestions. Then the word ceaseless turmoil, as if the earth mother breathing in fast, thick pants, the fountain forced out at short intervals, the fragments of hail striking on the earth, and the chaffy grain beneath the fray. This description creates an impression of power, anguish, and tumult. Then the river flows in a zigzag manner which refers to the complexities of human life. Finally, it reaches the caverns measureless to man, infinity and nothingness, and sings with the great tumult which is death agony. So the river is a metaphor of life, the birth, death, time stream. So these are the images which has been described throughout this poem. I hope you could have understood this poem, Kubla Khan. Stay tuned with Learning Station for further videos. Thank you.